So, good evening everyone. Welcome to this Young Workers takeover of the CWU channels. We've been given an hour's access to the Facebook and Twitter accounts for this evening so that we can talk about anything from the next generation of workplace reps to the world of work post-COVID, plus anything else we feel we want to cover. So we'll be getting into a bit of politics and how we can that can influence our experience inside and outside the workplace. We're also going to be covering the fact that the TUC have conducted studies which suggest that we need to be bringing through the next generation of workplace reps soon, or the movement as a whole is going to sort of face consequences. So that's what we're going to be talking for the next sort of hour, and plus taking all your questions at the end. So with us tonight, let's start with the young workers. We've got me, I'm Luke Elgar, I'm the young worker on the national executive for the postal side of the union. And we've got my fellow young worker on the NEC for the telecoms and financial services, Erin Brett. And we also have a very special guest, Lara Mcneil, who is the youth rep on Labour's NEC. She's also a junior doctor, so we're really delighted to have Lara on tonight, who's doing an outstanding job on behalf of working people. And last but not least, we also have Karen Rose, who's the president of the Communication Workers Union, and Dave Ward, and they're going to be joining us for the first part, and then they're going to leave it to the young workers and all the questions. So thanks to you guys for popping on tonight, and I think I'll bring in Karen now for the first word.
Thank you very much, Luke. So I wanted to come on tonight just to have a quick word with the young workers, because this is your meeting, and I'm really keen, as I know Dave is as well, to leave it to you as the young workers. But I just wanted to say about, touching on the point that Luke just made, actually, it's really, really vital for the trade union movement that we are bringing through a new generation of reps. And in the CWU, and obviously on the Labour NEC with Lara joining us tonight, we're seeing some truly inspirational young people coming through into our Labour movement. And that is absolutely, it gives me hope for the future when I see that, because I am really keen. I was young once when I started, and when I first became a trade union activist, and I was in my 30s, and I was a young single mum, and I was a job sharer, and I only worked part-time, and I didn't have a lot of time, and it wasn't always easy, but I'm absolutely sure that it was the right thing to do. I am so glad that I did it. I have had the most fantastic experiences in life while I've been an activist in the CWU. I've met some of the best friends that I've ever met in my life, and they will be best friends of mine for life. People who are like-minded, and I met my husband being an activist in the trade union, and I wouldn't have swapped that for the world. So I think there are so many good reasons to get involved in the union, but the most important, I think, is the privilege that I've always felt in representing my peers and standing up for the workers from the workplace that I came from, and obviously eventually from other workplaces as well as I progressed through the union. And so I just wanted to say to all of you, if any of you have got any doubts about getting involved in the trade union, please don't have. It's an absolutely rewarding career path to take. It is something that I don't believe you'll ever regret. It's certainly not anything that I've ever regretted. And you will be a force for good for the future, and to make things better for ordinary workers in this country. It's really a worthwhile something to do, and I genuinely would encourage you all to get active in your branches. Just do it. You'll never regret it. It's a really worthwhile thing to do. And tonight, I hope you have a fantastic meeting, and I will be leaving you, but I will be watching. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Karen, for joining us tonight. I think everyone will be glad to hear that she has no regrets in getting involved in the struggle, because it's always a long one, but we never regret taking on every fight, do we? So if you can let us know in the comments where you're watching from tonight, it would be great to see who's online. And with no further ado, I'll pass you over to the General Secretary.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Just a few words from me, really. Good evening to everybody, and thanks for joining the Young Workers meeting tonight, which is part of a 3-day event, engagement event that the CW is doing this week. And I want to say thank you for being a CW member. And if you're a rep, I want to say thanks for all the work you do on behalf of our other members. And also a big thanks to Erin and Luke, your NEC Young Workers reps, and the Young Workers Committee for organising this event. You took this initiative to put this in the calendar on our engagement event, and I thank you for doing that. When I opened the event yesterday to all our branches and to all our reps, I said that I believe that we're facing the biggest health, jobs and economic crisis that I've seen in my lifetime. But I also said that the deep-rooted social and economic inequality that has been exposed by this pandemic has been decades in the making. And I suppose the key question that faces all of us, and particularly our young workers, our young members, is what are we going to do about it? And one thing that I think a lot about as a father, as a grandfather, and as a trade union leader is that the young people who are going to face the consequences of this crisis had no part in creating it. But when I think about that, what also fills me with real optimism is that when I look at the young workers, young reps that I've met in our own union, when I look at young people who are getting involved in the trade union and labour movement that I come across, I've got a feeling that you're not going to accept the consequences of this crisis, that you're going to make change happen. And I think that whether it's in the world of work, whether it's about jobs, whether it's the economy, whether it's supporting our National Health Service, our care service, social care, whether it's climate change, and certainly whether it's standing against the people out there at the moment who seek to hold power over our lives by dividing us through race, dividing us through gender, dividing workers wherever they are. I don't think you're going to fall for all that nonsense. And I think you're going to make change happen in a right way that shifts the balance of forces in the world of work and in wider society back towards working people. So I suppose my job is this, as a leader of the union, and for other leaders of our union. We're all leaders, our branch secretaries, our regional reps, our national executive. Our job collectively is to empower young workers to shape the future. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not really that interested in what policies you want to bring forward. I am, of course, but I mean, I want you to shape it. I want you to be the people that determine our future. And I've only got really one thing to ask of you in that. And that's that you don't get involved in the sideshows. You don't get involved in the theory of politics. And you don't get involved in all the internal politics that goes on in organisations. What you need to focus on is the real issues and the things that are going to make change happen. And I'm very confident that what I'm seeing at the moment is a group of people who are definitely up for that. And let me finish by saying there's no better example that I've seen in our movement for years and years than the guest speaker that you've got tonight, Lara Mcneil. Lara is somebody who I've watched doing things in politics, not talking about it. She's a junior doctor on the front line. She's a trade unionist who has stood along platforms with us talking about how you're going to change the world of work. And she's the youth rep, young workers rep of the NEC, Labour NEC. And if you're a Labour Party member, have no hesitation in voting for her as the young worker to represent you within the Labour Party. So look, my message is you enjoy your meeting, you make the change happen, and we're going to be behind you to give you the platform to do that. So thanks very much. I'm going to leave now, Luke, Erin, Lara, and I'm going to let you get on with it because it's your meeting. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. Brilliant to have you on, mate. And I think Dave touched on there. It isn't easy, is it, for young people to get involved in unions always. We even had to fight to get a session tonight. So, but you just got to, make a stand and get involved when you believe it. So, without further ado, I'll bring in Erin Brett.
Hi everyone. As Luke said, my name's Erin. I'm on the TFSE side for the NEC. I just wanted to take a little minute actually just to say thank you to all of the young workers and pretty much everyone who has worked through the pandemic that we've been going through this past couple of months. It's not been easy. It's not been easy at all. We're constantly getting told things by different people. Oh, you can go out, you can stay in, blah, blah, blah. And I know in BT at the moment, it seems to be like we were valuable in the pandemic and now we seem to be coming to the end of it. We're expendable and it's completely wrong. So I wanted to take the time to say thank you tonight. I want people to start getting involved, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I got involved, what made me want to get involved. And if you want to get involved, you can contact me. Absolutely fine. So I got involved when I started working in the company. I got involved in 2016. I joined BT in July 2016, did my training, and I started to actually want to be a rep and everything. As soon as the union rep came into my training class to say, look, we're the CWU, this is what we do. And I thought, well, yeah, that's interesting. I love like the industrial side of things. Getting to help members and answer queries and stop things from happening before they even happen is absolutely fantastic. I also love obviously the NEC side of things where we're talking about the politics, we're making policies for the union, we're listening to you as members and you as reps and trying to put things in place to make the union better. And I think now with having the NEC Young Workers on there, I think it's going to be a massive difference from what we've had previously, because you do obviously have that young person's voice on the NEC, both from myself on the TFSE side and obviously Luke on the postal side. So I think we are making a massive difference. We are the backbone of the union. Yes, everyone else is vital to the union, and I'm not discrediting anything that they have put towards the union and how it's progressed. But young workers are what is keeping the union going at the moment. It's what is keeping the companies that we are working for going at the moment. So get involved. You can contact myself if you're in the TFSE side. So that covers financial services, it covers telecoms. And then obviously you've got Luke as well that you can get in contact with on the postal side if you want to. You can even contact me. I won't know much, but you can contact me if you want to. If you've got any questions for me at all, please drop them in the chat and I'll pick them up. Or if you wanna just message me, you can message me separately. That's absolutely fine. But I'll hand back over to Luke and you can stop I can stop waffling now.
Brilliant contribution. Thank you, Erin, for coming on tonight. Always great to have you with us on the NEC and on evenings like this where we try and reach everyone. So I think I'll echo you as well in thanking everyone that's grafting through the pandemic including our own members and those in the NHS, which where Lara is, and I'll bring in Lara now. So yeah, Lara, please come in.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute privilege, and I know Dave's gone, but thanks, Dave, for those really kind words. It's been amazing to work alongside young members and older members in the CWU over the last few years. The stuff you're doing in the industrial and the political is really inspiring, and yeah, it is a great inspiration to myself personally and young members of the Labour Party. I just want to talk a little bit tonight about some of the political context that we're in, and why young workers need to get organised, they need to get political, and how you can go about doing that. And then hopefully we'll have some time for questions. So this crisis, the COVID crisis, has shown we have these underlying problems and holes in our health and social care system. We've seen we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough tests, and we don't have safe working conditions. That's my experience in the National Health Service. And I know that members of the CWU have been key workers in this crisis and will have experienced probably a acute worsening of those conditions. And there's more stress and things put on workers without the support from the government. And this Tory government has underfunded, privatised and fragmented our health service, and NHS staff and key workers have taken the hit. Our system was already so unprepared when it started, and now it's even worse. They've been clapping every week. Everyone's been clapping, which has been lovely, which has obviously stopped now. But this was happening with Boris, clapping outside Downing Street, with real terms pay cuts for our key workers going ahead, every single year. They had this wartime hero narrative, which set the scene perfectly when there was a loss of life of our key workers and, NHS staff, and it allowed them to basically get away with something that was preventable. And we probably all know someone who's been, directly affected by that loss of life or illness during this crisis, which just makes it even more emotional. So why should trade unionists get involved with politics, and why is the link between the Labour Party and the trade union movement so important during this time of unprecedented crisis? So we know that young people are engaging more in politics, whether that's through things like the Green New Deal protests or the Black Lives Matter movement, or getting involved in the Labour Party or wider left movements. The Tories this week will have you think that it's because their teachers are teaching them how to overthrow capitalism. However, we know it's because a new class consciousness is arising amongst young people, because we can't buy a house. Our rent is too high, our wages are too low, our jobs are too insecure, we never live in the same place, we're moving around all the time, we're so disconnected to the society that is around us, because of the way that right-wing governments have laid down these foundations. And we're seeing more and more people, even people coming from middle-class families, not being able to get on in life, and being done all the things they're told by the Tory government to do and not being able to. And that naturally sends people more towards the left, saying, no, this needs to change. We need to fight for this. So we're seeing that developing in the young generation, but we'll only see the fruits of that support if young people actually turn up to vote and get organised in their workplace. And the data suggests that the youth quake that we apparently saw in 2017 didn't actually exist. It was exaggerated, and youth turnout didn't massively increase from 2015. And we know that it's no small task to overturn years and years of voter apathy and encourage those on long hours and low wages to be enthused to come out to vote. For too long, politicians sounded the same. And things look like they could be different, and they still can be different in the future. So many people registered to vote in 2019, but still we have so many not registered to vote and not engaged in politics. And there is widespread apathy at a political system which has let them down, and you really can't blame people from that. I'm sure we all have spoken to our friends and workmates who feel very apathetic at the whole thing and wouldn't really understand why to get involved with politics, let alone how. In recent years, that has changed. We've made things like anti-austerity right at the top of the political agenda, and we've given people hope that they can distinguish between the Labour and the Tory party. And there was a lot of buzz and hope around the election, and that demoralization that comes after is really, really difficult to deal with. And it's really important that we stick together as young workers, as people who are engaged or members of a trade union, with our friends. Our movement's not just about, getting stuff done. It's also about the solidarity and the comradeship between us. And this is a very demoralizing time. There's no point trying to hide that fact, and being honest in that and trying to support each other through it is really important. And as has already been said, then we need to focus on what wins we can get in the workplace while we're in opposition in government. And that's where the trade union movement is so important. So we hear a lot about not politicizing the crisis. We know this obviously falls into the hands of, liberal solutions, which are paper thin and won't actually change our society for the better and change society and give more power to young working class people to determine their own lives. And a love for the NHS, our public services, our key workers isn't enough. We have to have a political understanding of how it's under attack. And at the moment, we're in quite a dangerous place as a British public, that we're not having these political analysis of the situation, and therefore the right are at risk of capitalizing on this. Why it's so important for us to get involved as young working class people in key industries up and down the UK. On the front line, we know why the political system isn't working. See every day how employers and the Conservatives are, making more and more profit while people in work are losing out. And that's why we need you to get involved with the Labour Party and, with left-wing political movements more broadly. The Labour Party have launched this thing under Angela Rayner, who's the deputy leader, who used to be a social care worker, who's very passionate about increasing representation of working class candidates, encouraging key workers to run for councillor positions and other positions within the Labour Party, which is so important. And that is so important. The political link between the trade union and the Labour movement is so we can get working class candidates who really understand, what's happening on the front line, what people care about, rather than just politicians who have always wanted to be politicians or, have been, teed up for a role for forever, just to go into it, to just kick the ladder out from beneath them. And we really need people who are stereotypically not political to get involved, and normal, working class people who are angry about the situation around them, who want to change things, to get involved. And unfortunately, it's sometimes the people who least want to get involved that we have to encourage to get involved. And I'm sure we all know people who would be good political leaders and candidates that we all need to encourage to come forward, because unfortunately there's too many people who already have the confidence to come forward but are not representing that key section of society. And we know the circumstances for young workers are really difficult. We know young workers aren't paid as much as their older counterparts, and we know that this generation is facing really low levels of trade unionism, people growing up not even knowing or understanding the history of the trade union movement, what it's won. We're not taught about it in school, ironically, when the Tories are saying the curriculum's not representative or whatever. We don't get taught this stuff in school about how we fight for our rights and how we organise, how we collectively bargain. And as I said before, it's all about us teaching each other, showing solidarity and keeping us, upbeat in this crisis. We've seen some youth movements, like around the A-level exams, who came out more incredibly successful and got the government to U-turn on the A-level catastrophe. And we know that young people are very political, with a small p, and they are very in tune with what's going on around them. And I think the trade union movement and the Labour Party can give people a route to actually voice those concerns at a level where we can make real political change and change the government ultimately. In regards to the demoralisation, I know it's really difficult, especially with NHS staff, when there's such understaffing, there's such a responsibility, there's issues around people taking leave. It's really difficult for us because it's hard to take, industrial action and other things when we are going through a public health crisis. So it's the lot of the narrative is just stick together and, work hard. But ultimately, we have to look after ourselves as key workers, and we need to demand that the government does more to support us and stops privatising and fragmenting the NHS. And obviously, you've seen in sectors that the CWU cover about the horrible impact of privatisation and how that impacts not just the service, but the workers who are working in it. And we need to fight back against that. And this generation needs to make sure that we have workplace reps who are prepared to do that. And I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it. But if you are already involved or you've been a member for a long time, step up, become a rep. It's really, really easy, and people will be there to support and train you. And it's such an amazing thing to be able to fight for your own rights and fight for people around you. As has already been mentioned, it's amazing when you can have those wins in the workplace in a demoralizing environment. And I would just encourage people to do that. And then, if you're recruiting more members, make sure they're making the path through to being a rep as well, so they can, stand up on behalf of their fellow workers. We shouldn't take the youth vote for granted amongst, young people, and that young people are left wing. We didn't win the last election. We haven't won the last few, and policies that are led by us, young people, and written by us, need to offer, these solutions rather than just criticising the government. And I think young people do have those ideas, as Dave said. It's up to us to carve out that policy platform based on the knowledge we have from how the system is not working for us as young people, as working class people in this country today. And Young Labour, which is an organisation which is the youth wing of the Labour Party, which has about 80,000 members under the age of 27. So if you're a member of the Labour Party, you're automatically a member of Young Labour, called at the beginning of this crisis for an immediate rise in statutory sick pay, no matter what your age, a COVID-19 pandemic unemployment payment, boosting resources towards the job centre and HMRC, so that public services can better deal with the benefit claims that we're seeing, because there are going to be redundancies unless we fight them. Real financial support for local authorities and food banks, increased pressure on the government to legislate to suspend all rent mortgage payments that people aren't able to pay during the crisis, a growth in universal credit and international cooperation on all forms of response to the outbreak, including the development of a free global vaccine. And these are just some ideas that we've been able to promote in the Labour Party more widely, and also on the wider, political sphere, based on what we know we need as the radical response to this crisis. And it allows us to have, the voice to put our anger and our frustration into real, tangible political ideas and change. Young people know the response to this crisis, and we shouldn't be patronised and told that we can't lead on these issues or lead in our workplace. And I'll just end on this, that there is no remedy to this crisis, this public health crisis that we're experiencing now, and the economic crisis and the crisis of jobs, to any crisis of capitalism, without a clear alternative socialist plan led by working people, one that does not simply treat the symptoms of the crisis, but the cause, which we know is stark inequality in wealth and power. Even when our communities are dying, young and old, a system that still seeks to make profit. And this is the perfect time for the labour and trade union movement to come together to clarify our demands for change. The attacks won't stop coming. The demonisation of the trade union movement won't stop for young people, as they have in the past and as they are going on now. In fact, they've probably hardly started, and only the tenacity and hope of organised working class young people can combat the hegemony at the top. Thank you very much.
Well, absolutely brilliant from Lara. We said we was happy to get her on, and she hasn't let us down. So I want every CW member who's a Labour Party member who's under 27 to be voting and backing Lara in the forthcoming Labour NEC elections. Make no doubt about it. She has the support of CW. So we've got 2,000 people on tonight so far. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you for everyone coming online tonight and watching it, because this is what we're about. It's great to have loads of people interested in what the young people have got to say. So, as I said, the TUC produced a study which suggested that if we don't act fast, the trade union movement as a whole is set to lose half its reps in 15 years. Obviously, something that we can't allow to happen. This is due to rising age of reps, and I would suspect that in this time of 15 years in sort of industries with a higher age group, like my industry, Royal Mail, that this could be a significantly lower time. So this isn't the case in politics, and I think everyone has felt the thunderous noise of the youth throughout politics recently. This is due to the rising. I think, it's not being reflected enough in trade unions. And so in the CWU, we're looking to address this, obviously, with a young workers rep in every branch, a young workers lead in every region. There's 2 of us now in the NEC. But it's what other ideas we can come up with which will really make the difference. We've been looking at this for some time now, and we've been looking at the different ways we can shake up the young workers role so that it puts you directly onto the path to the next step should you age out. But we're also looking forward to hearing your ideas. So obviously we want all your input tonight. It's incredibly important and valuable. I'm seeing there's loads of comments already. So do you think a kind of mentoring setup, like apprenticeships like you would see in businesses, would help it? I think another point my friend Ricardo in the Fire Brigade Union made was a good point in saying that does the next generation really mean under 30s and an ageing workforce, or does it mean anyone with a number of years left in the industry who really wants to make a difference and wants to carry on the legacy of the terms and conditions that we already enjoy? So this session was not going to just be about young people, but everyone who's curious to see how we take on the battles of the future. And I want to echo what Lara said in saying it's no wonder a new class consciousness is appearing in times when politics seems so far away. And we need to link politics and trade unionism because it goes hand in hand. We've always tried to work closely with a party whose MPs and representatives have enjoyed lives like ours and have to graft and grind for a living whilst raising children and struggling to cover the bills. But it's down to us to make sure that they hold on to their values. And that's exactly what Lara's doing on the NEC. And we need to be asking politicians, what are you doing for us as young people? Not just in creating stable jobs, which is few and far between when multinationals like Amazon have their hands on politicians' throats, but also in the workplace. So from outside the workplace, so from creating opportunities in the housing sector. It's said that 1.4 million are living in poor quality homes and 400,000 now are living on the streets. And this doesn't paint a picture for positive prospects, does it, post-COVID? So we need to be looking at the reasons why many young people feel are becoming detached from society and showing a disregard for many systems of society. So politicians are soon realising that like talking tough on crime wins votes. But we need to be putting up fences at the top of the cliffs, not just putting ambulances at the bottom, so to speak. So we need to be looking at the reasons people are turning to crime instead of just looking to lock as many people up as possible. So the reason it's the young workers obviously hosting the session this evening is because we need to deliver a strategy on bringing through our new union activists, which will reflect the workplace in 10 to 5 years' time. And that's why it needs to be designed with maximum input from young people. I'm seeing loads of comments already, so that's happening right now. But it's often said that many of our practices might seem alien and new reps, which is why we need to trust young people to create a future in our image and in our language and in our view of society. So I think something I'd really like to see is when we can get people together again, which, you know, it seems a long time off right now, but you see our own activists launch a rally in the same spirit of the Durham Miners Gala and the Burston School Strike, being our own sort of image with today's customs reflected to celebrate workplace organising. So any activists watching from other trade unions, let us know your ideas and just agree and let's make it happen. I think we all need to realise that the world of work is rapidly changing. And if it isn't us deciding which direction, then it will be your kind of Rico back characters who would probably put us on a treadmill at the end of your shift just to make sure you ain't got an ounce of energy left. You know, but COVID-19 is going to speed up the change, and we need to. But we've seen, I think with COVID-19, we've seen the attitude of the public now, and the appreciation that's being shown to our unions for the creative outlook and looking for, you know, a bold, positive future. To our postal workers and our BT workers who are keeping the country going, keeping it connected, to our NHS staff who are throwing themselves into the danger zone to protect us all. And if we're going to steer what the future looks like in Britain at home and at work, then we need to channel that attitude and that energy. And we've got to say to the public, you know, keep trusting ordinary people to decide a future which is carved in our image and reflects the real reality of our everyday lives. Now's the time, I'd say, for real determination, sort of efforts focused on bringing through as many young people as possible as union activists. I've seen absolutely no evidence at all that young people are uninterested. Certainly in my office, it's the new starters. We've got loads to say about management behaviour. I think the only thing stopping young people standing to be a union rep probably is a belief, or their lack of belief, that they should be standing against someone that's been in the industry for a long time. But it's down to our senior reps to change that thinking and to make sure that they know that the union is going to defend them when they make the stand against the injustices in the workplace. So we've seen the polls, haven't we? We've seen the young people are radical. We've seen the young people outspoken. We've seen the young people are fearful for the future, though, and rightly so. With a government that's happy to lock up students so that they're paying rents at uni, instead of taking online seminars that they could take at home and saving money to prepare for these future challenges. And a government that took about 2 seconds to point the blame at young people for a second spike rather than taking some responsibility for their own mistakes. So it's no wonder that so many people think the system is failing them. But in my opinion, the answers are out there. We need outspoken, determined and confident union reps making a stand in their workplace and organising, as we do brilliantly, to be the voice of working people outside of Westminster. And I have so much faith in that if we can take the passion that's shown on Twitter and bring that into the workplace, then we can really make a change. So my message, I guess my final message is this to our senior reps. Do what you can to instill confidence to new starters in the workplace to stand up and say when something's wrong. And to our young people, I want to make a difference. It starts with you. So no one can put you on the right path until you put your head above the parapet. But rest assured, when you do that, there's loads of us here, myself included, and all the senior reps around the country that are ready to support you to deliver the change that you want to see. So I think that's enough of me, done with my rant, and I think now we're going to move on to the questions, just like that. So let me have a little scroll to the top ones. Bear with me, guys. Right, first question. The first question I've got is from Peter, and he says, how do I get involved in the union? I'm 19, is that too young? And I'm happy to answer that one. No, you're not too young. You're at the perfect age to be getting involved. Your rep should be telling you that, and I'm sure he will if you approach him. And the first thing I'd say is, if you want to reach out, then get on to find out who the branch secretary is, get on to him, and he'll put you on the right paths. There's loads of angles for young people getting involved now, and it's time. We're going to look to advance them, but you know they're there already. Should you want to follow that path? I've got a question. This one's from Amy. It says, will COVID hurt people for years to come in terms of jobs and unions? And I'm going to let Erin answer that one, if that's all right.
That's fine, Lee. I think we will always have the lasting effects of COVID. I don't think we've ever really had to deal with anything like this before. In our generation, obviously, we haven't. I don't think it will necessarily hurt us. I think it will change the way that we completely work, like it has at the moment. I think there will be a brand new way of working that we're just getting to grips with at the moment. But I don't think it will hurt young people for years to come. We are more able to adapt than older generations. I'm not leaving out the older generations, but we are more likely to adapt.
And I've got a question for Lara here, so if you're ready. How do I get involved in politics? I'm a young rep, but I want to give more. Brilliant.
So yeah, that's a really important question. Obviously, the trade unions have their own sort of political links to the Labour Party. The CWU certainly does, and I know that there'll be some political things you can get involved with your union to keep an eye out. Obviously, I would say join the Labour Party. I think being a member of something is the first way forward, and Young Labour is looking at regionalising our network. So there should be a Young Labour network in every single region of the country that you can get involved with, which is often a lot more accessible than going to national events or whatever. So I'd encourage you to go to your local meetings with young people, because it can often be easier to that generic Labour Party meetings where people, might already be very involved, and it might be alienating, and often it's, more social and less pressure and bureaucratic to get involved with the Young Labour group to just discuss politics and, organise a change in your community. We've seen Young Labour groups up and down the country do amazing things during COVID, whether that's supporting local schools, local food banks, or their local community, especially when the lockdown first happened, which was very shocking. So yeah, I'd say encourage, get a group of friends together and encourage each other, get involved with Young Labour, see what your union's doing in terms of political education and other things. It is easy to get involved, and anyone wants to reach out to me to ask more detail, then I'd be happy for you to do so.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, I've got a question from John. What about us oldies? Are you trying to kick us out? No, absolutely not. I think without the experience that we've already got in the workplace, we wouldn't be able to bring through a new generation of reps. What we need is you sharing all that experience as much as possible. And what I like to say is we take a lot of pride in our history in the CW and all unions. Well, you've got to take pride in your legacy as much as your history now, because this is about the future. Thank you for the question. Now, how do we bring forward more young reps in the workplace? I'll have a go at answering that one first. I think, firstly, we need to, there's loads of answers to this, and I think we need to start expanding the young workers role, which means that it becomes almost like an apprenticeship role. If I take a liberty, this isn't union policy at the moment, but that's what I want to see. And I want to see young workers role almost so when you finish as a young worker, it's not just being focused on politics and the sort of stuff that you would be seen as young worker stuff. It's putting you on the path to know exactly how you're taking the bosses and brings all that in. So, and I think I've had a go at that. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask Erin to have a go at that question as well, please.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I think to bring more young workers, young worker reps into the workplace, I think what we need to look at is not make it such a, oh, you're a young worker, you're a young worker rep, that's what you do. I think we need to be able to maximise everyone's potential. So if someone is fantastic at industrial cases, we can look at industrial cases and doing them with them. If they want to go down a more political route, do it that way. If they want to go down the women's officer route, BAME, anything like that, they should be able to, they're able to go down it and have that support. I think it's a case of when we're going into, in BT, we go into the training classes. I think it's a case of going into the classes and being able to actually go out there and speak to people, and saying, oh, well, yes, yes, we are a union. We do represent you in an industrial case, but we also do all these other things that you don't really see in the background. Maybe this will interest you, and just getting out and talking to people about the different activities that we do. And that should, I think that will bring people in.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Erin. I've got one. I think this one's going to be for Lara. It says, does politics impact on what happens in the workplace? Shouldn't they be kept separate?
What was the question? Unless politics...
Sorry, does politics impact on what happens in the workplace? Shouldn't they be kept separate?
I don't think you can ever separate those two things, which is why, the CW and so many other unions are affiliated to the Labour Party. The Labour Party was set up by the trades union movement to give working class people a voice in a place where they never had it in the decision making, our democracy. And since then, we've seen, obviously, working class people are still pushed out of our political spaces, and we have to have that connection. Obviously, being in opposition it means the trade union movement is even more important to not just defend but extend our rights in the workplace, and as young people, you know, make sure we know what our rights are and we're prepared to stand up for others and ourselves when people want to take advantage of us, you know, based off our age or whatever job we do. That is so important in opposition. However, without a you know, a bigger political change which actually shifts wealth and power towards working people, then it's going to be an uphill struggle, and those struggles go hand in hand. I don't believe that you'll ever get a politics that represents workers unless working people are in those political positions, you know. That's why it's so important to have ordinary members who are Labour candidates and things like that. So we actually have workers' voice in Parliament, you know, to stand up for us. Otherwise, if you keep them separate, then you'll just have people who are interested in politics, you know, with a capital P, going into these areas and not standing up for people in the workplace. And you know, it's not going to engage people to vote for them. It's going to cause apathy. People will say, oh, all politicians are the same. And the struggles in the workplace will get harder and harder and harder. And it's also our duty when we're in government to ensure the trade union movement are holding Labour to account and making sure when we're in government, we're not advancing privatisation, you know, things that like Labour have done in the past, which have been shameful. And we need to make sure as a trade union movement, we're holding the Labour Party to account on that. If we divorce the relationship between the two, then really the Labour Party loses its point in advancing the rights of working people when it actually gets into government. So yeah, it's 100% one and the same. That doesn't mean that people have to be actively involved and like uber political and uber into the industrial. You know, people have their roles, as Erin said, in different parts of the movement, what they're good at, what they feel, you know, passionate and, you know, basically good at talking about or arguing or debating in the workplace. And for different people, that's different things. But as a movement, we have to focus on the industrial and the political, and those will never be separated. And if they are separated, then the right wing will capitalise on it and it will disadvantage us as workers.
Well, I was going to come up on the back of that one, but I don't think I will, because I think I couldn't give a better answer to that. So one for Erin now. Erin, you ready? Carolyn asks, how do we engage young workers in CW campaigns such as Count Me In and We Rise Again?
So I think actually engaging the young workers in the Count Me In campaign specifically, because that's what I know about, we need to make sure that they actually understand what the campaign is about. I know a lot of the times the graphics that you can see and things that are being shared on social media is saying no to compulsory redundancies. Now, the Count Me In campaign is not just about the compulsory redundancies. It is affecting young workers, and they're doing it sneakily. They don't know. The young workers don't really know what it was like previously. Well, some will, some won't. Don't know what it was like previously to what it is like now. Like, for example, if you've joined the company in the past couple of months, you'll be on an unagreed terms and conditions contract. You won't get your bank holiday payments, you won't get your Sunday payments, whereas someone who's been with the company 4 years, for example, me, I will. You're getting less a bonus because of the new bonus structures. Albert conformance is going through the roof, and it's not resolving customers' issues. There's lots of different things that the Count Me In campaign actually encompasses. So I think making the young workers aware of that in the wider community will definitely see that it's not just older people or people who've been with the company for a long period of time. It's not just them that the company are after. They're trying to make it worse for everyone. It's a race to the bottom, and BT are winning that race at the moment. So I think making sure that they're fully aware of everything will get them involved.
Another great answer there. Thank you, Erin. Let me just scroll down. Mike asks, is the union in postal biased towards senior people? I don't think so, certainly not in my experience, because it was the union that got me from part-time to full-time. and it's the union that asked me if I was going to consider getting involved in the CWU. So certainly not in my experience, Mike. I hope that helps. Let's have a little scroll down. Okay, I'm going to pass one over to Lara. Andy asks, a massive increase in Labour members recently, but why not union members? Why?
So there's been a lot of research and studies into, trade union membership, like the TUC report was mentioned as well. I think the Labour Party had a lot of change, and then we got a lot of young members joining when Jeremy Corbyn was elected leader, and a lot of people have rejoined under the new leadership again under Keir. And I think people are, leaving and coming in quite quickly, and they're very engaged with the policies that are happening. At a political level, people are interested in that. I think the problem with trade union density goes a lot deeper. It goes into the changing dynamics and kind of the changing industries and the changing geography of the country, and also just the fact that young people are basically growing up without being taught about trade unionism. There's still the ongoing slating of the trade union movement and the demonization of the trade union movement of the right-wing press, and it's still in the minds of many people's parents. So I think it's a very deep-rooted problem that we as a generation have to overcome, and it's obviously down to us to do that, and I think we will. And that's why it's important for the Labour Party, when it does see an increase in membership, to ensure that it's encouraging people to be members of a trade union. It actually says in the Labour Party rule book that all members of the Labour Party should be a member of the trade union. It's not really enforced, but it is in our rules, so we need to make sure that we're doing that. And often being a trade union member and a rep is really, really putting the graft in, and it can be it is definitely a struggle. It's not called the struggle for nothing. So I think when people are trade unionists, though, they never go back. So it's a very sort of strong connection, and the decline of it has been a little bit more complex, especially in the younger generation. And I think that the kind of new struggles that we're facing haven't necessarily translated to a rise in trade unionism to protect that, and that further just encourages bosses to continue cracking down, and as was said, a race to the bottom. So we have to fight back against that and recruit people to the trade union movement, but it is a generational thing, which we have to fight, and a lot of prejudice and things like that. But the Labour Party is disproportionately middle class. It is disproportionately older. It is disproportionately more white than the working class population. So we have to fight that in the Labour Party as well, and that's down to us to recruit our friends.
Thanks a lot, Erin. Another quality answer. So the questions are coming thick and fast, aren't they? With just three of us here. One question that stood out to me, I've got to find it again, it was on mental health, and it was from Dominic. I know that much. Yeah, Dominic. Mental health is a massive issue for young people. So much pressure. How do we change that? And I want to answer that and say, I think this goes right to the heart of our dispute, doesn't it? So when we look at things like the increased workload and the change to the way we operate, when we look at job security and not knowing what's going to go on in the future, and when we look at a culture and some of the hangover from the Rico Back era, which says, which just you have that constant feeling that your governor's on your back all the time. Well, all that is terrible for your mental health, and that's exactly why this dispute has been so important. And we hope we get to the bottom of it soon. And I think that goes exactly for the same with the campaign. This is the future for people in a time when the climate is uncertain, to say the least. And we've got a company like BT that's benefiting from COVID because the internet and the public services are in so much demand, and yet they're looking to lay people off. It's disgusting. So these people must have no conscience not to do the right thing and try and protect jobs. From a personal point of view, on mental health, I say exercise always helps, man. Yeah, do exercise, big, small, hard as you feel possible. A bit of yoga, nice and gentle. It really helps. So I think there's one more question, and I think me and Erin will both have a go at answering this. If you want to go, who can go first? I'll go first. How important is mentoring? Mentoring for me is exactly how we're going to bring through the next generation of reps. I think without that sort of senior rep taking you under their wing, it's certainly how I grew as a union rep, and I hope to grow further by drawing experience from more senior people. And I think, it's not easy, is it, being a rep? So you need someone more senior, more experienced, someone who knows, who's done the hard yards to give you the right path and show you exactly how it's done. So if you wouldn't mind having a go at that one, Erin.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'm echoing Luke's points made. Mentoring is so incredibly important. I know personally I wouldn't be the rep that I am today, the person that I am today, or even in the position that I am today without mentoring. My branch has been fantastic. The union, in all fairness, anyone that I walk up to and I ask for support, they will provide it for me. And it's not just a case of mentoring just being with one person. You do need to have that inter-constituency mentoring to learn different things about the union. For example, I always go to Luke and I ask him questions about the postal, and he does the same for me. And we're helping each other get there. And mentoring is just a massive part of learning the job. And there's not really much more you can say. Mentoring is important.
Massive thank you. No, that's it for the questions, guys. I should have given you a warning in those last couple, but we're learning. We need mentoring on all this sort of stuff. So I'm going to give Erin and Lara just like a last quick message they want to give before I close it up. Thanks to everyone who's been on tonight. So who wants to go first? Erin?
Yeah, can do. I just want to say thank you to everyone coming on and listening to us. And getting involved, asking us the questions. I know it's not the prime time to speak to people. You've all had long days in work, but you've either gotten up early and you've done a long shift, or you're just in work, just finishing. And I appreciate you taking the time out to come and talk to us, to get our side on different things. And I do really appreciate it. If you do have any questions that I've not answered during this time, as I said, just contact me, whether that's an email, a text message. You can message me on Facebook, anything like that. And I'll try my best to answer you. If I don't know the answer, I'll say that I don't know, but I'll always try to answer you.
Cheers, over to Lara for the last message.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's been really encouraging, and just if you want to get more involved, obviously contact Luke or Erin about the CWU. If you're watching from another union, or you're just a young member wanting to get involved, feel free to contact me. My union's the GMB, and that's a very general union, represents a lot of young workers, or we can direct you towards a union that will be good for your workplace. Really sticking it together, stuff like this is amazing. The communication to people in their own homes is really important during this time, and just make sure that you reach out to your friends and make sure you turn that anger that we're all talking about, the crisis, our workplaces, everything that's going on recently, just turn it into political action. If you're not sure how, find out how. And yeah, solidarity, everyone.
I was already unmuted. Yeah, thank you, Lara. So, in closing, I just want to thank Karen, Dave, Lara, and Erin for joining us tonight. We all want to wish Lara the best of luck in her re-election as a Labour and NEC youth rep, and I want her to know that the CW is right behind her. And I want to congratulate CWU Young Worker John Carson on being elected onto the Young Labour Committee. So those who know John will know that he's absolutely going to do us proud. He's certainly not lacking in sort of quality, and he's going to represent the union very well indeed. So that's it from us tonight, and I'm going to close, and I'm going to hope that Tottenham ain't losing. So see you later, everyone. Cheers.